Hey guys, Jason here with RWB NetSec, and in this video we're going to be going over how to use DNSEnum in Kali Linux. So this tutorial will show how to launch DNSEnum, how to use the most common switches, and how the information fits in as part of your intelligence gathering phase of a pen test. So let's go ahead and get started here. So I've got the website open. This is the author's site. He's listed all of the information you'll need. If you happen to be running a distribution that's not Kali, say you're running Ubuntu or some other distro, you can install DNSEnum on it manually. And it's basically just a Perl script. But there may be additional Perl modules that you'll need to install, so just consult this page if you're going to attempt to install it manually. And I will be putting this link in the description below so you'll have access to it. So let's go ahead and close out here. So there are a couple of different ways that you can launch DNSEnum within Kali. The first way is just to go up here to Applications, Information Gathering, and then DNS Analysis, and then just click on DNSEnum from there. And as you can see, opening it with no switches or anything else, just lists the help file, which will show you all of the available switches. And then the other way that you can do it is just to simply open a new terminal window, and then at the prompt just type in DNSEnum, and it will give you the same information that you got from the other way. So let's close out here. Now I wanted to start by just going over some of the most commonly used switches and kind of giving a brief overview of what they do, and then we'll use that information then to build our command line into actually using the program. So the first one here, we've got the TXT DNS Server. So by default, if you just run DNSEnum without this switch, it will use your default name server, your resolving server, which for most of us is going to be our local ISP server. With this, you can actually specify another DNS server to use for any of the queries that it's going to perform. So for example, you could use Google's public DNS server or OpenDNS or any of there's tons of other ones out there. And also in the description below, I'm going to put a link in. There's a project out there called OpenNIC project, and it will actually give a list of all of the publicly available DNS servers that you can use. So check that out when you get a chance. The next switch is the TXTenum, which is basically just a shortcut. It contains within it 3 of the other switches. So it's got TXT threads, by default set to 5, TXS, which is set to 15, and this specifies the maximum number of subdomains that it will scrape from Google. This TXW just tells it to perform a whois query on the subdomains. The next one we'll look at is the TXT no reverse, and this just tells it to not perform any reverse lookups. The next one here will be TXT subfile, and with this, if say you just run DNSEnum with some of these other switches, the output is just going to be put on your screen. If you use this TXT subfile switch, you can actually specify a file to write the results to, and what it will do is any new subdomains that it finds, it'll just write those subdomains to this file so you can go back and reference those later. The next one we'll look at here is the TXF, sorry. And this is used for the DNS Bruteforcing. So this takes a predefined word list, and by default, DNSEnum already has a word list that you can use. It's located under User Shared DNSEnum, and it's called DNS.txt. If you do have any other word lists, you can certainly use those. Just point this switch to the location of that file. And I think those are the only ones I wanted to go over here. So now that we've looked at some of these switches, let's go ahead and start working with the program. So one thing I like to do, especially if you're brand new to using this tool, is you can leave this screen open here at the top and then just open a new window. I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. And then you can just use this screen at the bottom to actually run the commands and then keep this one up here as a reference. So the way that we're going to run this, there are going to be two different websites that I'm going to show the different results that you can get. So we'll start out here. You just type in DNSEnum. The first switch that we'll use is the TXT DNS Server. And in this case, I'm going to just specify Google's public DNS server. Next, we'll do the --enum. Sorry, I can't get in the habit of saying tac and --, so excuse me for that. Next will be tac no reverse, and then we'll do a tac-f and point it to the default file. That's enum dns.txt, and then we'll do a tac subfile. And as you can see on the desktop, I've created folders, and it's a good idea to get in the habit of this. If you're doing a pen test for a company, go ahead and create a folder named for that company, and that way you can just store all of your documents, screenshots, images, anything that you're using to work with that pen test. It just keeps it organized. You keep it all in one place, you'll know where to find it. So I'm going to specify first, and Hack This Site is a site that is set up that you can do testing against. So we'll do desktop and Hack This Site, and I'm just going to name the file hackthisSite.txt. And then the last thing you'll put in is the actual domain name. If I could spell, goodness. And once you get that typed in, just hit enter. You'll see it goes through these parts pretty quickly. The thing that will take the longest normally is the brute forcing section, because it's going to take that word list and go down each entry, pinging for those subdomains, see if it gets a response back, and then it will add those to the list as it finds them. So while it's doing that, we can just scroll back up here quick and see the information that it has gathered so far. So you can see the first section here shows the host addresses for the site and the IP addresses associated with it. Next, it shows the name servers that are associated, which you can see here that it's the site is using a third-party hosting provider for its DNS. The next section is the MX records. We can see here that they're all set to Google, so it looks like the site is using Gmail for its email programs. And here it's tried to do zone transfers. So we can see here it looks like they have all failed, which is a common thing. Like I said in the previous video on the DNS overview, it's not very common these days to find a server that allows you to do a zone transfer externally from the network. Most system administrators do have their servers configured properly, so it would be rare, but it's a good thing to check for. And when this one gets finished, I'm going to show you another website that's actually configured to allow zone transfers, just so you can see the type of information that you can get from it. And here, this next section shows the scraping results from Google. And you can see here it's found speed test, forums here, and then it shows you the complete results that it got from Google. And you can see that this first one here is a CNAME record. So if you go to this site, the forums.hackthisSite.org, it's actually going to this server. So that means that it's hosted on the same server as the main domain. And here it looks like the brute forcing section has now finished. And these are some of the other subdomains that it discovered. So we've got admin here, IRC. These are good to keep in your list. These could be additional systems that you can attack that may give you a better chance of getting into the system itself. A lot of times you may find subdomains like test or developer that the system owners may not necessarily have meant to be publicly accessible, but sometimes they forget and leave this stuff out there, so it's good to check this. And we've got the whois results, the IP blocks for the domain, and that's it for this one. So one thing I wanted to focus on, going back to the zone transfer section. So we can see that the zone transfer failed for this site, which is probably what you're going to see on the majority of sites that you do. But if we go back here and run this again against this other site, so this one is called zone transfer.me. And again, guys, I will have these links in the description below. Let's change this to zone transfer me. And this one, I'm going to specify the actual name server for this domain. So it's nsztm1.digi.Ninja. And this is a site that was set up by Robin Wood over at Digi.Ninja. And so he configured it to actually allow a zone transfer. And you can see the kind of information that you'll get from it. So it's going to do the brute forcing again. But let's scroll up here and look at the zone transfer section. You can see that there is a ton of information that comes back from doing a zone transfer. There are additional hosts that show up. Thing you'll notice here is there are a lot of different DNS resource records in here. So you've got A records, MX records, NS records, service records, and all these things will contain information that may help you further get into the company. So always pay special attention. If you come across a server that allows zone transfers, please notice all of the details of the records that come back. So one thing that I wanted to do here, again, if these videos are, I guess, geared more towards those who are brand new to looking at DNS enumeration. Maybe you've never looked at a zone file before. You've never used any of these kinds of tools. So one thing I wanted to do is just to quickly look at each of these record types that comes back and just kind of give a brief definition, explanation of what these records are. And then I'm going to show you another tool here in just a second. So you'll notice you start out with the SOA. SOA stands for Start of Authority, and basically every zone file that's configured for a domain will have an SOA record in it. And it will contain things like the primary DNS server for that domain. It normally will show an email address and contact information, serial numbers, all those kinds of things for that specific zone. The HInfo record is basically just used to show the host server's operating system type. Of course, it looks here, this one's obviously spoofed. I don't think the server's running on a calculator, but you can put whatever you want to. If you're configuring these files on your own server, you can set it to what you want. There is an RFC that's related to these, and there are specific names that they list for operating system types, so you can go and have a look at those. A TXT or a text record will normally just contain some kind of descriptive text. Some admins may put things here like contact names and phone numbers, and this one here just shows that the site has been verified by Google. to use in some of the Google apps. MX records are the mail records, which shows the mail servers that are set up for that domain. An A record, these are the most common records that you'll find in a zone file, and these are the actual domain and IP mappings. This entry here, this is the same kind of info you would see if you had your local host file on your Windows computer configured. It'll just have the domain name and space and then the IP address for that domain. The NS record is the name server record, and it basically just shows which DNS servers are authoritative for that particular zone. And most of the time you'll see a primary and a secondary DNS server. A service record will show you the location of a service. Normally these are used in connection with, say, like directory servers like LDAP or Windows Directory Services. Most of the time you will see that they have SIP associated with it, which means that this is using a voice over IP service. Next, you've got the PTR or pointer records, and this is what's used for reverse lookups. So you can see here you've got the IP address first, and then you've got the domain name that it maps to here. So in this case, the actual host is the www part. This AFSDB, this is really an old resource record type. Nowadays these are replaced by the service records. They really can reference what they used to be used for is like authentication servers, volume location servers, and there's a few other types that they would reference. But this type has really been replaced by the SRV record. Let's see here. Next we've got the AAAE record, or the Quad A, and this just shows the domain and IP mapping using IPv6. A clever name here, dead beef. Next you've got LOC, or location records, and these are interesting in that they can specify the geographical location of a host, and it uses the latitude and longitudes. So you can take the information you find here and then plug it into, say, Google Maps and find out where maybe a particular office is located, a server. It depends on what information they stick here. NAPTR, this is a name authority pointer. And these are mainly used for if the site is using internet telephony. It basically maps servers and user addresses or telephone numbers that can be routed over the internet. And I think the next one here would be an RP. And this one just basically specifies the mailbox of the person responsible for the domain. So here you've got robin.zonetransfer.me. On here you would replace this first period with the actual @ sign, so it would be robin@zonetransfer.me. And these are all of the unique, this is all the same information, but the ones that I showed you, I highlighted those specific ones because they were all unique to this, let me say, unique entries in the zone file as far as the actual record type. So like I said before, make sure you keep track of all the information in here, because you can see you can get email addresses and names, you can get phone numbers, you'll find additional servers, subdomains that you can possibly test against. One thing that I did want to make note of here, as you're doing a pen test and you come across maybe additional information like additional servers, make sure before you start doing any attacks against those servers that they are considered to be in scope by your client. You don't want to go start attacking something that may be a critical production server and then you take it down by running exploits against it or something. So just make sure that those are approved for your attack scope. So one thing that I discovered while working with this, it seems that some reason DNSEnum does not list all of the information you can actually get in the zone transfer file. I'm not exactly sure why it does it, but if any of you guys know why it does it this way, just leave it in the comments below. But I wanted to show you another tool that will give a little bit different results, and we'll compare the two, and then I'm going to show you why it is important that during a test you use a couple of different tools just to verify the results you're getting, to see if there are any discrepancies, to see that, it's possible one tool may gather some data that your original tool didn't find. So it's always good to use more than one tool just to verify your results. And here we're just going to look at the dig tool. And this is also installed by default in Kali. We're going to use AXFR for a zone transfer and then point it to the name server for the domain. Zone transfer.me. Hit enter. And now if we scroll back up here, look at the difference. In the DNSEnum results for the SOA record, it only showed the primary DNS server for the domain. If we go up here to dig and look at its results, you'll see that it actually shows not only the DNS server, but it gives an email address, and then these numbers here, these are all like serial numbers and refresh numbers for the server. The HInfo record, here it only listed Casio, and here we get the full description, Casio FX700G. I'm not sure. Let's look, see if it got all of this. So look here for this text record. DNSEnum only got the word remember, and in dig it got a full sentence here, which actually gives us another name of a person, a phone number, and another email address. So like I said, always verify your results by running another tool just to make sure that you're seeing everything that you can get out of it. And be sure to keep track of all this information, all this stuff that you're getting out of a zone transfer, like names, phone numbers, email addresses. All this stuff can be used later on, maybe like with a social engineering attack or a client-side attack. So just make sure that you are keeping up with all this. Store everything in text files in one folder so you'll know where to go back to it later. And again, that's all I wanted to show you here. DNSEnum is a pretty simple tool to use. I will make available the slides. I'm going to put this on my website, so you'll have a text version of this video. And I wanted to again to give a quick shout out to Robin Wood at Digi.Ninja for the zone transfer site, and also to the author of DNSEnum. I'm not sure I'll pronounce this name right. I think it's Philippe Wayetins. And sir, if you hear this video, please forgive me if I mispronounced your name. But again, I want to thank everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Thanks again to everyone for watching, and I hope you guys have an awesome day. Thanks.